be a moment where you're sitting there just listening and not being an active participant. Again, this is all about our community. So Lauren, Peyton, and Michaela have been fantastic and have been willing to come in front of you and speak on their culture. One thing I will say is that it's very, very difficult to talk about yourself, particularly when it comes to culture, race, identity, anything like that. So as part of this, we ask that you be respectful. We know that you will be, and we will to you that you see everybody's opinion as valid, and that you share your experiences as well, and that this is a safe space for you to share who you are, so that we can better know one another as we see each other every single day. So we're going to start out with a question for these lovely ladies to answer. And then from there, they're going to speak on their culture and their identity, and then we would love for you to ask questions as well, or to share your experiences. You ready, ladies?
Yes.
So your first question: who is one person who inspires you to feel confident in your own skin?
I'll take it. Definitely my mom. She, since a young age, she always instilled confidence in me, especially that being important at being a minority and a woman. She taught me that growing up, you have to be assertive and you have to show your place or you're gonna get stepped on. And I think I carry that with me today. And that's something super important. I think all girls should learn that. And so she really inspires me, especially even her position at work, being a chief operating officer, also inspires me because it's like, wow, she can do that, I can do that, and more.
I was gonna say my parents also. My mom is also, like, her workplace is predominantly white, so she kind of goes through the same struggles as I do. But my dad is, like, really forces on us how, like, just be unapologetically who we are. So, like, if somebody's talking over us while we're trying to say something, talk louder, tell them, and just let our voice be heard.
Someone that inspires me would be my godmother. She owns 4 daycares all around the city, one in Rainbow Park, and 3 of them are in the city. She inspires me to be better as a person and also as a woman. She always walks in the room with her head held high. I mean, if you've ever seen me walking around the school or in class, I've never been one to hold my head down while I'm walking because it shows confidence. If you walk with your head down, it shows that you feel small about yourself, and you shouldn't feel that way about yourself. So definitely my godmother. She shows me to be polite, but also respect who you are, and don't let other people disrespect you or belittle you.
How does that tie into your culture? How do you define culture for yourselves? Or identity?
Culture is something that a group of people can relate to. So for us as Black young women, not only can we relate as being girls, but we can also relate in the struggles that we have to face as we go into this predominantly white, raised world, especially the country. No doubt I love the benefits that we can get as being a citizen of the U.S., but there are many more struggles than benefits when you grow up, especially in Chicago, especially where I specifically live. So when we bring our culture to different things like our food, our hair, our swag, then we can most definitely, raise our next generation correctly.
I think our culture was kind of built on how much we relate to things and how we've just been able to, like, push through all the challenges we face and, like, how we've been able to, like, I don't know, let me try and find the words. I'd say, let me go back to me, I gotta think about it.
I think culture is very beautiful because I think culture is something that everyone has their own experiences with. And I think that a lot of things that get misconstrued is that in terms of stereotypes, I myself, I don't represent one whole community. I'm my own entity. I can't account for things that happen to other people because we all have different experiences, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think that's why culture is such a great thing because it's like we all have something we can bond over, but we have our separate sects in which we indulge ourselves in.
Next question, please.
So, so understanding that right now what we're talking about as members of the Black Student Union is the African American experience, the Black experience. One of you did mention a little earlier about being in a predominantly white society. How do you feel that you go through and maintain your culture and identity in a predominantly white institution?
I think it's the fact of knowing your values and staying true to yourself and not kind of blending in just to fit in. Because if you're different, and be different and accept that and be proud of who you are. Never feel like you have to kind of conform to different cultures or pretend that you may like something just so you feel you're not an outcast or you feel like you're not appreciated, because you are appreciated and you are your own person. You have to just be that person.
Yeah, I would say the same. Just being comfortable in expressing your culture and not feeling like you have to conform to other people's standards or culture just because that's what's considered normal in like the part of society we're in.
I most definitely think it's being around your family. You know, when you're around someone on a day-to-day basis, or even if it's just hanging with your cousins or your aunts, like during the weekends, it's really fun. So you automatically find yourself back in a comfortable space, in a safe space. And when you bring that with you to a predominantly white society and these buildings and jobs and schools, you can most definitely feel comfortable and confident about yourself. And I know that like really helps me because I'm around my family a lot. I'm a very family oriented person. So yeah, family, most definitely.
How do you feel like at Macaulay we can improve like celebrating other cultures?
I think starting off doing events like this, I think more implementing like, because this is so optional and people who don't want to be here or don't care about other people's cultures aren't going to come. But making people learn about other people's cultures and not just knowing about like the South Side where they're from and actually having to expand.
I think another way at Macaulay, like Peyton said, that we can start off with events like this. We can also do events for teachers, for staff. They can educate themselves not only in the African American community, but also the Hispanic community, because you all matter too. The different cultures that are represented at our school, because we are a very diverse school. When you look up our school and you see the population for the girls in here, you see a little bit of everyone. So I think educating ourselves first and foremost, from the staff to the faculty to the teachers, right on down to the students and even the incoming freshmen, so they can feel important if they're not Caucasian, or, you know, they can learn about something if they're from around here.
How have you navigated spaces where you are the only person of color?
Definitely for me, being myself. I feel as though we can, if we have different views, we can still be respectful, and we may not see eye to eye, and that's fine. But I'm not going to sit up here and not be myself, because that's not being true to myself. And I know also, like, respect is another huge thing. Like, we both have to be able to respect each other. So as long as we have those things, I feel there's no reason that we can't get along in a space together.
Okay, first I observe the space a little bit to kind of get a feel of the people, because you can kind of tell a lot about a person just from 10 minutes of seeing how they interact. but then I always make sure to get what I need to say and not like take a back seat in conversations and stuff.
For me, for a lot of people actually of color, I code switch. I'll be totally honest with you. I be myself, but I code switch. You have different tones and different pitches and the way that you talk with certain people. Let's take an easy example, your parents. You wouldn't dare say, girl, what you talking about, to your mother. You wouldn't dare say that because there will be consequences, whether it's getting your phone or you being grounded from going to see your friends on the weekend. But you will most definitely say that to your friends. It's all about pitch, tone, and the words that you choose to use. So that's most definitely how I navigate through a predominantly white area or place.
How do you differentiate code switching, and how do you stay true to yourself while you're code switching? That's a better question.
How I do that, I still let myself show through, like my true personality show through what I'm saying, but it will accommodate to what you're used to hearing. That's definitely how I do it. If I'm talking to a police officer because I'm at the police station right now at incident report, I wouldn't say, yeah, bro over there on 95th did this, and this. I wouldn't say that. I would say on 95th and Western, this is what happened. Like, I know that's not a real street, but I'm just saying, like, this is what happened, this is how it went, and, talk proper, not even proper, just choose your words wisely, and also let your personality show through how you're talking.
Right. Say what you wanted to say, just like say it differently.
Exactly.
I have a quick question that goes along with that, and that is a question that was presented to us. Have you ever experienced, especially in this need to code switch, the feeling of imposter syndrome?
Yes, extreme. I've always at Macaulay, I felt that I haven't been good enough. Like I've gone home after classes, crying to my parents, oh, nobody takes me seriously. Nobody wants to hear what I have to say, just in group projects or something. But I kind of had to realize I'm in these classes for a reason. I'm smart, I can do it.
I definitely felt that growing up as I went to a predominantly white grammar school. And growing up, especially being a little kid, it's just you have to get used to those things. Wow, when I walk in there, I don't really see many people that look like me, and it takes some adjusting to. But I think I just came to the realization that I'm on my own. I'm myself. So there's nothing I can do about that. There's still great people out there that I'm still friends with to this day. But I think it's just realizing that you also have family, you have a support system, you have people you can talk to.
To be honest, I haven't really dealt with that. I mean, they are older than me, so they've had a lot more experience than I have. My mom, when I was younger, purposely put me in situations where I had to speak up for myself, where it was, shopping, and I had to pay for my own money, and she would ask, okay, how much you gonna give back in change? Just teaching me different things of life, and I've never really had to really deal with the imposter syndrome kind of thing as I've been growing up. I don't know, it's just something that I haven't really come face to face with.
Do you think that changing your tone when you're speaking to your black friend versus your white friend or just black peers and white peers in class, do you think that's an issue that needs to be changed? Well, I feel yes, but then also how do we go about that?
I do think it's something that should be changed because I feel like we should be able to be comfortable with each other because we are all human beings and we are all people at the end of the day. There is a difference between talk to your friends or just code switching and then professionalism. You have to use professionalism on a day-to-day basis, especially once we come out of Macaulay, we come out of college, and we go into the workforce. Whether you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to get investors for your business, or you're, talking to your boss and saying that you want a raise. You have to use different words or a different tone because it's called professionalism. Whereas, when I'm talking to my friends or, people that are the same as me, I talk how I want to talk because we're comfortable that way.
I think it does need to be changed, how we like talk in different tones, talking to certain people. But it's the reality of it is that unfortunately right now, talking like if you're in a workplace and you're talking with the like higher voice or like better tone, you're gonna go farther, which is awful, obviously. But it should be changed.
I think there's definitely a difference between code switching and culture appropriation. I think that when it comes to your environment, if you grew up in an environment and you may talk a certain way, that's something that just, it's a kind of nature versus nurture thing here. Like, that's how you grew up and that's understandable, that's what you were subjected to. But there's a difference when you're talking with your friends and then a different friend comes and maybe of a minority or whatever it is, and you start talking or acting like them or dressing like them, but then you come back to your environment, your home life, that's not how you were raised. So there's definitely a difference between adapting to the environment and trying to change to the environment.
Is there an incident where you have not code switched and you have benefited from that?
Maybe
No. You have to soften your voice when you're talking to certain people.
maybe
You don't. Yeah,
oh,
go
yeah,
ahead.
sorry.
I mean, you don't want to come off aggressive if you talk like if I know my voice isn't low, but like if you talk low and you just coming off your like your downright raw self and you're talking to a higher up, they may deem you as aggressive or incompetent, and that's not who you are. But if you soften up your voice and you go a higher pitch and you talk to them like this as if you're talking to a child, they seem, oh, they're easy to work with. You get what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Maybe in peers, like if I've not code switched, they kind of understand me more, and they're like, oh, like they get to see my 100% authentic self. But in like professional situations, no.
Yeah, I think too, like, especially if you're in an argument or something, like, you kind of have to be stern with the person sometimes for them to understand. So I feel like that's another thing that can kind of change code switching is like when you're upset with someone. I mean, obviously, sometimes it's something that you can't control, but you have to just get them to understand your point.
Do you all feel like code switching like happens naturally now, or like? what do
Yeah.
you
Oh
see?
yeah,
100%.
definitely, yeah.
Most definitely.
Do you feel that oh, sorry. Wait, okay. Do you feel that Macaulay, your womanhood is valued higher than your blackness?
Can you say that again?
Do you feel that Macaulay, like, you have to prioritize your womanhood over your blackness? Or, like, do you feel like it's equal? Because I feel like for me as a white student, I feel like it's equal. But then, because I'm white, like, that's the majority. But how do you feel like that can be switched? Or, like, do you feel that it's the same way for you?
For me, I'm black and a woman, obviously, but I'm black first, a woman second. Like that, I feel like being black affects me more than being a woman does.
Most definitely, because when your mama pregnant with you, they don't know if they gonna have a boy or a girl first, right? But they know exactly what race is gonna come out to. And even before you come out the womb, they are already putting, not your parents per se, but society are already putting stereotypes on you before you even take your first steps, say your first words, or even open your eyes. And I feel like at Macaulay, yes, our womanhood is put above our blackness. And I mean, from what I've heard from past seniors, this kind of thing has never happened before until we created BSU, until we pushed forward for our voices to be heard. And I feel like that is something that needs to be addressed.
Oh, go ahead. I haven't really experienced too many circumstances where I feel like they're not equal. Like to me, in my opinion, they're both equally important to me.
My question was, do you think there's a difference between white feminists and black feminists?
Most definitely.
Yes.
Well, who was the lady that did the women's suffrage? I totally forgot her name. Susan B. Anthony. Did you all know that
she was
Frederick
racist.
Douglass was one of the people that helped her? but she felt as though it was inappropriate for Frederick Douglass to be on the stage with the white women and white women in the audience. She did not care if black women had the ability to vote or not. She was just worried about herself and her people. So most definitely there is a difference between white femininity and black femininity. I can't say the word, but y'all know what I mean.
There was honestly like two different movements for
And for two different things, you feel?
yes.
Yeah, I definitely would say, I think that black feminists, it's more like pushing for that being valued, our opinions matter, and that whole like stereotype of an angry black woman. Like, why can't she just say her opinion and not always be labeled as, oh, she's the angry, oh, she has problems, oh, she's a little crazy, like, and you're just pushing it under the rug. But it's like, as soon as a person of a white counterpart, per se, says the same thing, she's not angry, she's just speaking her mind, and change comes about that. So it's like, it's just realizing those two things. There's definitely a different movement there. Yes.
How do you feel like at Macaulay that can be improved?
I feel as though, I definitely feel like Macaulay, our opinions are valued. I do feel it in my personal, I can't speak for everyone on here. But I definitely would say, I think it would be nice if we had more teachers or faculty there that also looks like us when we come to the building to help with that effort as well.
Honestly, Macaulay is doing a pretty good job at, making sure everyone's voices is heard. Everyone has different experiences, of course. Me, I'm only a sophomore, so I haven't really had that touch, face-to-face basis thing. But yeah, Macaulay is doing a pretty good job. Like she said, we do need more people of color on the faculty and staff, because we need more people to come to. Sure, Miss Wheeler is here, and we love her. But, it would be nice to have a woman of color as a teacher, so we can see, we can achieve this. So, yeah.
Janae.
I wanted to ask something to the 2 questions ago, basically about, do you feel that you're a woman and then your blackness has to be pushed down? And I was going to say, with intersectionality, they're on equal footing for me. But sometimes when I do come into Macaulay, it does feel like my blackness is pushed down. And I remember there was a question one time of what are stereotypes of women, and white women would say weak, while me, I was like, that's not something for a black woman. It would definitely be like aggressive, overpowering,
Masculine.
strong, exactly, words like that. So that's why I feel like sometimes I have to go back and forth between them.
Miss Waronko, next question.
So on top of that, so kind of to go to the idea of stereotyping, what do you feel like is something that you've experienced that you feel like is one or two of the most glaringly obvious ways people stereotype black culture, and how do you handle with that when something like that happens? Do you code switch and explain it? Do you kind of walk away from it and figure out what to do with it later? What are some examples that you've seen and you've experienced personally of what people get wrong about black culture?
Go ahead.
They assume just because most black people can do it, everybody can, or they're just gonna assume stuff about you. Like, I've been asked, oh, you can't dance? Are you for real? Like, stuff like that. And it's like, they're like, wait, why can't you dance? And it's just like, not every black person can dance. Just
outside of Macaulay, I've had, had to deal with things like the staring and, I've worn my hair in puffs before, and it's like, oh my God, can I touch your hair kind of thing, and, I've had to deal with those stereotypes because I've put my opinion in your face, and now you're afraid of me, and you feel as though we can't work together, or we can't do a project or something like that, and I feel like that should be changed.
Definitely, I've come across experiences where I've heard people saying things like, oh, like they're poor or they're only on welfare or they don't speak proper English, and that's like it's not like I'm not that person. We're all different, and I'm tired of people saying, oh, those people, them. We're not a group. You have to realize that. So I think that's one of the stereotypes, and it's just like I think it turns into a bias for most people, and I think when they come across something different, they're so shocked. But it's like, why are you shocked? Because we're not all the same.
And to piggyback off the incorrect English, let's not forget, we weren't taught the correct English. We weren't taught how to read and write. So we had to use words that we heard in the house. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. We had to use those words that we heard, and they didn't pronounce them correctly. But as time went on and we got, pushing past those disadvantages, we started to learn more. And that's what we also have to learn as Black women. You have to use your resources that are at hand. Thankfully, Macaulay has the Learning Resource Centers, all of that. Thank you. But we also have to go outside of Macaulay, because that's what the world is for real. We have to read books, read articles, do research on your own. Fill your head with as much knowledge as possible before you get old. So that way you tell your grandkids and kids and all of that other stuff, things that they won't learn in school. If you look at what happened in other parts of the U.S., specifically in the South, they're taking out Black history. Black history is American history. Let's never forget that.
I did have a question. So, do you think slavery is too focused on in history class at college?
I think that's at Macaulay.
Careful.
Or in general?
Thank you. I think that they act like that's the only Black history for America. Like that's the only thing we're ever taught about Black people in America was slavery, and it's not enough things that we have done. Like,
in general, I think in the textbooks, like Payne said, slavery is focused on too much, but let's never forget what happened in slavery, and it's not just the pick and cotton part. But we also have to focus on our triumphs. Coming past the voting legislation. I mean, we're still dealing with that now. If you look at the news and what's going on. But you have to get past that part. We have to let go of that slave mentality, especially as a Black community. We have to let go of that part, and teaching it to our younger siblings and our younger cousins and our nieces and nephews, that's not going to help us progress. I'm not saying that we always need to rely on, the people to help us progress. We have to make sure, like what I said, we have to educate ourselves in order to educate the next generation. So, yes, Madison, it is focused on too much.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I feel like that's the only thing that they show, and I feel as though like it's almost like, oh, there's nothing that's ever focused on good that we've done or discoveries, because we've done a lot of those things. But it's like you have to go outside and research that yourself, and then it's like once they do, it's like, oh, okay, we talked about it, whatever, but we're not going to focus on it. Why is it not equally important? So we have to think about those things.
You had a question?
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, how do you think we as students could hold our peers and our instructors accountable when they behave microaggressively?
Respectfully correct them. Like I said before, professionalism. That is where that skill comes into set. You don't have to code switch. You don't have to, soften your pitch, all that. Just respectfully correct them. That's why we feel as though the faculty, staff, and teachers should go through courses on how to educate themselves, not to offend anyone. Not just Black students at Macaulay, but also Hispanic students at Macaulay, Asian students at Macaulay, everyone. If there's a male teacher and they say something wrong to us young women, period, we should respectfully correct them. Don't, call them out their name or anything like that. Of course not. but use what you have learned from your parents, from your old teachers, from TikTok even. Like, you can learn a lot of stuff off of there. But honestly, it's like the new YouTube. But anyways, but you know, use what you learn, use your resources on how to educate yourself to respectfully correct someone, not just a teacher, but your peers also. If they say something that they shouldn't be saying, correct them. But don't call them out their name, even if they do call you out your name. Turn the other cheek. Let's use Jesus for example. Amen.
Yes.
We'll take one more question and then we are running out of time. So one more question.
Okay. Do you feel like code switching is something you wish you didn't have to do at Macaulay? And if so, how to and on a student body level, how do you how do we fix that?
I'll be totally honest with you. If there were a solution that we can use to fix it, I'm gonna be totally honest, I'm probably still gonna do it. It's so embedded into my mind now that there's no other way to do it. When I'm talking to someone that is not of color at my table, I'm gonna use a different pitch tone or, you know, different words. If you've had class with me, you notice how I may talk to you a little different, how I may talk to the other student that is of color at my table. I'm gonna be totally transparent with you all. But yeah, if there was a solution, and I hope there is one day, I probably wouldn't stop code switching because it's so embedded into my subconscious.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a problem, don't get me wrong, but we have greater problems like every day than just having to code switch. Like, we go through a lot more than that.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with code switching. I mean, everyone code switches. I think that code switching to be like professional is fine. Like, I mean, it's just something like they all said. It's just so natural. Like, you don't even notice it. You kind of it just happens.
But I also think there's two like different types of code switching. I think there's a code switch. It's like how you say it. You change up the words differently, but then there's also your tone. And I think it's more because you can tell, like, on the phone, over the phone, if, like, just by your voice, if you're black, white, what race you are, most of the time. And I think some code switching is, like, black people, like, over the phone, just to get jobs or something, having to sound white. And, like, putting, like, a different pitch in their voice. Not just by, like, what they say.
But yeah, most definitely.
So we've got a couple minutes before the end of the lunch period. I want to say thank you to all of you for attending. I'd also like to give a huge round of applause for our